All right, so I'm going to do this one pretty quick, but there was an interesting press release that I saw from Consumer Reports where they talk about an investigation that showed that companies that do all this on-demand connected workout stuff with the equipment that comes with it, we're thinking like Tonal and Peloton machines and Bowflex and so on. All these on-demand connected devices are gathering information about us, which probably isn't surprising.
Right,
The
because
extent of the information is surprising.
like a lot of them, they like measure your heart rate and all that stuff while you're using it. I figured the internet connected ones are probably collecting all of that for some reason, but not your smell, surely.
Yeah, which was the weird thing, and of course they put that in as a hook line.
Right.
One of the companies that they looked at as they were looking at the terms and conditions, it was Bowflex. They said, if you're a Bowflex user, you might be surprised to learn that the company, in its privacy policy, also grants itself the right to collect and share data on how you smell.
Unreal.
Yeah.
How would they even get that?
So, there's questions about whether they actually have that, or if they're just kind of reserving the right in case they put the equivalent of smell-o-vision or smell detectors within their devices. It's like Perry's really working up a sweat in that, and his sweat smells like onion. Right. We wonder if he has a health condition, or maybe he just likes onions, so we can sell the data to advertisers. We can also notify his Apple Watch that there might be a heart condition there or some other kind of health thing. We can also notify his health insurance provider that they need to up his rates because of some concern. Anytime I think about data collection and all these, it's always those few things. It is, what can the data do to enhance your health? And that's the stats that are being shown, but then also the stats that get shared with like Apple Health or something like that. Then there is the data that says things about you that might be used to monetize you in some way. So how do we share that data out with advertisers that are third parties? And then how surreptitiously might that data be used against you in some other way, which might be your insurance company or something. Does your insurance company get access to that, maybe with your consent or implied consent? Because if it gets used in one way, it could potentially lower your rates. But as soon as it starts to go the other way, of course, your rates are going to get higher because of whatever those indicators are.
Right. If they perceive something as a risk, that makes me really deeply uncomfortable. Like, I love data and metrics, particularly I wish I could get more data and metrics about my own body. Like the idea of more in-depth health monitoring software would be amazing. I have severe health anxiety pretty much all the time. So that would be great. But the idea of that being sold to an insurance company to change my rates based on things like that is hellish. That sounds nightmarish.
And to be sure, they don't, just to be really clear, they don't say anything like that. That's just my mind of saying a health insurance company would really want that. Your insurance provider would want that data if they could have access to it. And if they could work with any of these providers to inject themselves in the terms or conditions, or as an optional third-party thing that you can click on and give access to it for a potential promotion benefit, then they'll probably do that because it only makes sense with their business model.
It reminds me of there's a lot of concern around period tracking apps for women or for people who have periods in the U.S. with a lot of current legislation around abortion access and things like that. This is like our most political episode ever, but like the fear around who gets that data, who can read that data, what do they infer about you, how can they use it to track you? And that's like, I feel like these fears, like even though they're not currently selling your data to an insurance company to determine your rate, I feel like that is a very, very valid thing to be afraid of and want to get out ahead of somehow. Like this is where regulation, I think, could step in and say, you can't do that. Don't do that.
Right.
If you do that, it's illegal.
It definitely should.
Yeah.
The regulation should definitely get involved in that. The problem is that a lot of the people that are in charge of the regulatory bodies don't think the way a technologist thinks.
No, that's
because
for sure.
when you look at the data that's here, from just a sheer data collection perspective, you can think of a lot of interesting uses. But then if you add like an entrepreneurial mindset on top of it, you can think of a lot of potential economic benefit that you get by having this data, and the ways that you might monetize that. If you put your bad actor hat on, you can think about a lot of ways to potentially target somebody negatively based on all the information as well, through like extortion or through some other means. Like when you're talking about the period tracking apps, certainly if there was a very oppressive regime in one area and you got some interesting information based on the tracker app, you could be more oppressive from a political perspective and stop somebody from doing something, or you could extort somebody and pressure them into doing something that they otherwise wouldn't do. So data, and this even goes back to like the TikTok discussion, data is gold in a lot of these things, not necessarily because of just the single data point, but what it means and what it can infer when you put all those data points together, and then you start to think through these different prisms.
And like, just to be clear, to put another button on this, this report doesn't say that they are using your data in this way, just that they are collecting extreme amounts of your data, and they could use it for these things. It doesn't seem like there's anything in the way.
The ability to collect your smell if it comes down to it.
Yeah.
Which is just creepy. Is like that doesn't pass the sniff test.
Oh gosh. No, it doesn't.
The Consumer Reports article is worth a read. We'll put that in the show notes. They look at Bowflex, Concept 2, HydroRow, Kinomap, Lululemon, Nordic Track, Peloton, Tempo, Tonal, and Zwift. So some of those I haven't even heard of.
Yeah, me neither.
But if company can see data and get data, company want data, I think is what it comes down to. And they will try to give themselves permission to have that, house that, and do whatever they think is going to be beneficial to them, not necessarily you.
I want to, not to elongate this segment too much, but really quickly get your opinion on, I'm seeing an uptick in advertisements for services like Incogni and others that claim to remove your data from data brokers. Like they go and they send all of those requests to take your personal information out of whatever various data brokering services they have contacts with. And I think it has to do with the EU's like right to be forgotten law. It's just such a cumbersome process to do yourself. They do it for you. But I have not dug into like the veracity of their claims or if they're effective or not.
Yeah.
Have you at all?
We should take a look at that. I've not. I've seen the ads. I've seen influencers that are trying to get people on board. You know, there are so many influencers that are selling different VPN services, and those VPN services are not always what they're cracked up to be.
They make weird claims about security that just aren't true or possible with a VPN.
They're just not true.
Yeah.
So same thing with services like this. I would want to do a little bit of research before I make any claims. That being said, there is a quote that I want to get to from this before we move on. They give themselves carte blanche to do whatever they want with the data, even if they don't currently have a use case for it. And that's kind of like where the smell version of this comes in. It's like, why do they see themselves wanting to use that in the future? We have to realize that our data is valuable. And one of the things that some of these systems have on them is cameras. So they can see the way you're working out. They can hear you. Where are those videos being stored? Are those compromising in any way? Embarrassing? What if somebody were to hack into those systems? And you know, it's one thing for a potentially embarrassing video of you trying to keep up with a workout, but it's another thing if maybe even the system wasn't all that secure and the camera and audio is recording at times when you don't know that it's recording. Do they have the ability in some kind of diagnostic mode to just turn the camera on remotely? And does that happen as either a glitch at some point and get recorded, or does it happen through a hacking event? We don't know, but because all of that information is being ingested and because all those capabilities are being there, we have to assume that they can be used against us in some way, and it's not always going to be for our own benefit.
Yeah, I don't love the preemptively getting permission to sort of do whatever with whatever, because when they do it, they can be like, it's been in there for a long time, and you agreed to it 40 years ago or whatever. Not 40 years, but yeah.
Exactly. I think that's it for this segment.
That's good to know. We're going to come up with the segment about AI power consumption next with a little bit of a call for help. Stay close.